Hi, I'm Jamie, and welcome to this episode of Over a Cup of Coffee. We are so excited to have you join us. This is the podcast where we talk about everything under the sun, all over a cup of coffee, so stay tuned. Hi, it's Jamie, and welcome to this super exciting episode of Over a Cup of Coffee. This is the podcast where we talk about everything under the sun, all over a cup of coffee. And we are so excited today to introduce our special guest. But first, I want to introduce, of course, Addie, my partner. Hey, Addie.
Hi, Jamie, and welcome home. I feel like
Thank
it's been
you.
so long since I saw you.
We had a little mini road trip to Texas to see our youngest son, and but super glad to be back in Farmington. And for our listeners, just to remind you, we're in Farmington, New Mexico, which is in the southwest in the area known as the Four Corners. And so one of the coolest places to live. I'm saying one of the coolest places because of our guest today. So, and thanks for my birthday present, Addie.
You're welcome.
I got a birthday present because it was my birthday. But I want to go ahead and introduce our guest. I did a little tease about this on Facebook, on our Facebook page. But I'm very excited to welcome a fellow Chamber of Commerce director, which already makes us great friends. So Shellie Whitfield is joining us from Wetumpka. So welcome, Shellie.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm excited to be here with you.
Oh, we're very glad to have you. So I want to just give you, the audience, just a little bit of background. So I was watching the television show Hometown Takeover on HGTV. And for those of you, I'm going to let you really talk about the show, but just as a little bit of background. So Hometown Takeover was a little bit of a not a spin-off, but another type of show from Hometown with Ben and Erin Napier, where they went into another small town and helped to just build positive community. And in the very first episode, you were on, and I said to my husband, look at Shellie, she's so cool. Chamber of Commerce directors are awesome. We do so much. So then on the following Monday, the following day, I was like, I'm just going to call her and congratulate her. So I looked up, Wetumpka Chamber of Commerce on Facebook and used my official, I'm the president and CEO of the Farmington Chamber, so you'd take my call. It sounded so official. But really, I just wanted to congratulate you. And so at this point, I think I just want to hand it back to you to give a little of your background and how this all came about with HGTV and Ben and Erin and the whole process.
So I've lived in Wetumpka about 4 years. I moved here from Denver, Colorado, and I bought the iconic Big Fish house, which was the movie set for Tim Burton's movie Big Fish. For people that haven't seen it, you really should watch it. It's a very whimsical, profound movie, and most of it was shot in and around Wetumpka, Alabama. So Wetumpka has long had a plan to revitalize. Like a lot of small towns across the United States, with the evolution of the shopping mall and with major highways, our little towns, the historic part just sort of got bypassed. So they built a highway in the late 50s that bypassed downtown Wetumpka. And then as Montgomery started to grow, because we're about 20 minutes from Montgomery, as Montgomery started to grow, they kept building more and more malls. And so what they saw is that the mom and pop shops started to close down. There wasn't a place for them anymore. So when I moved here, the downtown was about 40% boarded up and closed. It had potential, but on a Saturday night when I sat on my porch, I was the only one down there. So it was kind of almost like a spooky vibe. And so the city and our Main Street director and the chamber all has been working really, really hard for a vision for revitalization, defining who we are and all of the things that are involved with revitalizing a community. And so when we applied to HGTV, Ben and Erin saw that. They saw that we were doing the work. They saw that we worked well together, and they chose us. And they forever changed the trajectory for Wetumpka, Alabama. That there really are no words for the goodness that they have brought to our community. I don't know. Is that enough?
Yeah, that is, so impactful. And we've talked several times since that first phone conversation. And one of the things I need to point out is that you actually have been a chamber director just as long as I have, 2.5 years. We both came into it in 2019 and then survived 2020 as chamber directors. So when did the town know that they actually were going to that they had been selected? When did you find that out?
I knew you were going to ask me something like that. I think it was in July, maybe, when they did the big announcement. We didn't know until it was on TV. So when they said they were doing the big announcement, it was when we were still having to socially distance. So we hung a huge screen on the side of the chamber building, and people brought lawn chairs and sat outside, and we just waited and held our breath. And so, yeah, we were all together in the street when we found out that we had won. It was awesome.
That is so exciting.
So cool.
I know. Did you have a question? Because I feel like I could totally dominate this conversation.
No, it's fine. I'm enjoying it because I'm like seeing your counterpart.
I know. I'm like, poor Addie's not even going to get a word in on this.
It's perfectly fine. I was already anticipating that, which is okay.
But you are a fan of the movie.
I am a huge fan of the movie. My grandfather, his whole life was this big, vivid story. We never knew when he was telling the truth. We never knew when he wasn't. And I mean, even after he passed away, that first Christmas, we all sat around, all the grandkids, great grandkids, my grandmother, my aunts and uncles, my mom, and we all shared one of our big stories from him. And everybody had a true story, which I thought I did too. And when I shared my story, it was the biggest lie he had ever told. My grandma laughed and laughed. And then that movie came out about a year after he had passed away. And I remember my mom and I just we cried through the whole movie because it was very similar to his life and all the stories that he shared with us.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
I just think, yeah, when you told me so excited, I've reached out to her, this is where she lives. I was like, oh my goodness, we have to do this. I hope she wants to.
Well, it was interesting when I first met Erin Napier. She had told me that it was her all-time favorite movie and that she had seen it over 200 times, which even beats how many times. And I said, why do you love the movie so much? And she said the exact same thing that you did, that it reminded her of her grandfather, that it came out after he passed away, and that she sat in the theater and cried because she felt like she could feel him when she watched it. And so I had the opportunity to watch the movie with her with no sound, and she can do every line from the movie.
That's so funny.
That's great.
It is a great movie.
How did you, because our community here in Farmington, we have recently, before COVID, really worked on a rebranding campaign. The whole Four Corners saw us as one kind of community. Our own citizens of our community saw us as one kind of community, and we were really working on branding ourselves in a positive way. And so how did you get the community behind this? Or was it just easy because they knew a TV show was coming in? Did everybody just rally around this idea?
Well, I think our community had been rallied prior. We received our Main Street designation in 2015, and our Main Street director is a rock star. I always say there can be only one Jenny Stubbs. Like, she is just a powerhouse, and she has done great work in our community. And so one of the things that they did when we received that designation, one of the things was to do branding. And so in order to do that, you have to define who you are. And in defining who you are, we have 4 things that we are in Wetumpka that make us unique. When you define who you are, you have to figure out what makes you different from someone else and then play to that. And so we had already sort of been doing that. We had our four different facts of who we are, and we all use the same fonts and the same colors. And so our whole community had kind of really already started to feel that momentum. We had already started to do some murals. We had already started to elevate Wetumpka through the arts. We had already, we had just gotten started with the momentum. And then we got schwacked with a tornado 2 years ago, which definitely set us back. And so I think most of it is that Wetumpka is very loyal and they're very on board. And I think that because there was already that initial excitement, it wasn't that difficult to get people like, oh yeah, HGTV is coming up. They just see what we do. They love it too. And so it wasn't really very difficult.
And then the sustainability of it. So I'm on one of the fan groups, hometown. I think it's the hometown, but there's also the hometown takeover fan group, and I'm seeing a lot of conversation of people coming to visit Laurel, but also coming to visit Wetumpka and going to the places. And so, have you just seen this huge influx of people coming to visit your town?
There are not words. We went from being like a sleepy little town where you go to your local restaurant. Then we were completely shut down from a pandemic because we filmed in the middle of a global pandemic.
Right.
So everything was shut down, and we knew there was going to be a lot, but we had no idea how many. And it has been awesome. I mean, the people that are coming are just good and kind, and I mean, it's really incredible. And they're coming from all over. We've had people come from France, tons of people from New York, California, Oregon. Like, you just can't imagine. We normally average about 2,000 people a month that walk in front of the chamber. I had a foot traffic study done in May, right after the show aired. We had almost 9,000, and that wasn't even when the momentum picked up. So that's a lot of people at the Wetumpka Area Chamber of Commerce. That's a lot.
Oh,
That's
so
a lot.
exciting.
But it has been great. It has been really, really great. And I do think we'll sustain it. The reason being that I just think that people didn't know how great Wetumpka was, and we didn't really bother to tell them. And now people have seen how great it is, and every person that comes says, oh my gosh, we'll be back, because we are beautiful. We're right on this river, and we're so historical, and you can kayak and you can hike, and we just have all these things to see and do and places to eat. And it's really wonderful in a small little setting where people are kind and loving. It's awesome.
Doesn't it sound like, I mean, she could be talking about Farmington.
She could. When she
how
said
much
hidden.
we've changed and
Right.
grown. You know, we at the hotel, I'm with the Home 2 Suites. I'm the director of sales there. And there, I see people from all over the world. And we always look at ourselves as the gateway to the community. So we want to make sure we tell everybody everything we love about the area, where to go, where to eat, who they should meet while they're in town. And we're hearing more and more that, oh my goodness, I never knew this place existed. Oh my goodness, the last time we were here 10 years ago, it's changed so much, and I want to live here now. I want to come back. And I think it's a beautiful story that small communities like yours and ours, we all need to start reclaiming so that we can get back to those softer human values.
Right. And I was just, as I mentioned, I was in Texas this past few days visiting our youngest son. He lives in Brownwood, Texas. And it's a town of about 20,000, so about half the size of Farmington. And so I always make it a point, no matter where I go, to visit the chamber director and introduce myself, whether it's downtown Chicago, Illinois, or Brownwood, Texas. And you'll appreciate this, Shellie. So I went into the chamber, and their new chamber director is 1 week old into the job. And I just said, wow, it's so nice to meet you. Do you have any questions? And he said, how much time do you have? And I said, well, I don't have a lot of time today, but call me next week. So he's brand new into this position, which I think you can relate to, of trying to figure it all out, figure out all the pieces. But the other thing I did was make sure that we shopped at the local bookstore, and I took a picture with the local bookstore owner, and we went into the small eateries and the small coffee shop there called Common Grounds. And so I feel like this idea of local, whether it's in Wetumpka or Farmington or Brownwood, Texas, find those small mom and pop owned places. Try to stay away from the big malls and the chain stores, because we have those everywhere. Support those small. That's how you meet the real people. That's how you really get a sense of the community. And I think everybody listening to this podcast, they live somewhere or they go visit places. And if they can just say, we're going to really try to find the
Those
small,
niche
unique
places in each city,
and support them. And that's what I think so great about the show, is that it kind of showed your town and it highlighted Wetumpka, but it made me think of so many small towns across the whole country that are revitalizing right now.
For sure. We will have said over and over, Ben and Aaron will say it, and the producers will say it, and the people at RTR Media will say it, and the people at HGTV will say that the show was never about construction. It was never about paint and backsplash. It has been about connecting in community. It's been about people helping one another and revitalizing and building. And I think that after the pandemic, people are craving that message. And I think that's why we have seen such an overwhelming response to the show. It emerged as the number one emerging show, the number one show on HGTV, and the number one show overall in the ratings the week that it came out. That is crazy. But when people have been cooped up and isolated for a year and a half, they just want to feel something. And small towns make you feel something. They make you love your neighbor. And it's awesome.
We are all, as chamber directors and tourism, throughout the pandemic, we kept, I know hashtagging shop local, support local, eat local.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the message. But then and I think I mentioned this to you on the phone, stepping back as we reopened our town and our economy, what exactly does that mean? It's easy to hashtag it. It's easy to say it. But what does that really mean? And it doesn't mean that you can't ever go into another community and shop and eat. And it's just your own community is, like you said, connecting, building and connecting with the people in your community and helping. And you have a favorite saying about the boat, about the tide in the boat that you told me about. Yeah.
Just about if you add water, then we all rise. Oh, no, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I always say is when I took over as the chamber director, I felt like there had been some compartmentalization in our community. And it was my goal just to love everybody into the boat and get everyone rowing the same direction. And you don't have to spend Christmas together, but if you will just get in the boat and row the same direction, then everybody wins. And we really have been able to do that. And people have seen that when you work together, it is a win for everybody. So I always say you don't have to spend Christmas with each other, but just row the same direction.
I bought this book. I was talking about this local bookstore I went to in Brownwood called Intermission, because it is a bookstore built into the old theater that was there, was built before World War II. And they went in and did a big reno of this downtown bookstore. And so I bought this book, and I'm not sure if it's on the camera or not, but it's called Be the Miracle. For our people listening on the podcast, it's written by Regina Brett. And I picked it up, and I just wanted to read this one quick section, this quote, because it sure made me think about what you all are doing there and what we're doing here. Says, we want someone else to act, but miracles aren't what other people do. They're what each of us does. They're what happens when ordinary people take extraordinary action. To be a miracle doesn't mean you have to tackle problems across the globe. It means making a difference in your own living room, your own cubicle, neighborhood, and community. And I really love that, because I think we feel sometimes that, oh, someone else is going to do it. Someone else is going to take care of this.
Yeah.
Someone else.
Or it's too big. We see something as daunting, and how am I, just one person, going to take that on? When in reality, like you said, we do compartmentalize often. All of us do that. And if we start pulling people together that we need, we'll get there.
Right. And not every community is going to have HGTV. Well, are they going to do this again? Do you know? Or maybe you don't know, or you can't say. I haven't heard.
I don't actually know. Ben and Aaron just had a baby.
Right.
Excited.
They're home on maternity leave. I know that it was an awful lot for everyone involved, because they were filming simultaneously in Laurel. They were doing their season there. So their whole team was in Laurel. So they had to bring a whole second team to Wetumpka, and they would bounce back and forth between the two places. So it was all while she was pregnant. So it was.
That's a lot. Well, and even if they don't do it again, though, I just think like you said, the message and what has come out of this, and so many people are from a small town, and we're seeing, like we talked about one time about your, properties are selling in Wetumpka just like they are here in Farmington and across the country. People wanting to return to their small town. And I think a lot of it is just what you said, Shellie. It's about connection, and it's about that neighborhood. But even if you live in a huge city, you still can find that. You still build that community. So, not every community is going to have HGTV come in, but I think every community can work towards positive building and tackling some of the problems that we all have. Stores closing down, local shops, like you mentioned, the highway. So how are the stores doing? I know that, yes.
So awesome. They can't get shipments fast enough. A lot of the store owners, they'll actually cry. Like, it's so far beyond their scope of imagination. We were talking about doing, not to go off topic, but doing a little bit. When I first came in as the chamber, our main street in our city and our chamber had really been working independently. And so my mother loved Christmas more than anybody on the planet. And so I said, you know what we should do? We should transform our whole downtown into a Dickens Christmas village. And so we got everyone together, and the city got the carriages, and the Main Street director created a Christmas tree walk. And we had a lot of empty buildings at that time. So I took our quilters and put them in, and some artisans. We filled all the buildings, and we all dressed up in costumes, and everybody came. It was the best event. And we all looked at each other and thought, well, that wasn't so hard. Well, because everybody helped. And if everybody does this much, you can do something so incredible. But it's too overwhelming if you're just one chamber director or one Main Street director or one person in the community. Mm-hmm. But it has really become a big deal, and it's pretty magical, and it gets more awesome every year. So.
See, I just love your enthusiason. Chamber directors, like I said, are the best. Yeah. And I'm pretty new to it, but I do think we're very lucky in our community because all of those different pieces that you just mentioned, for example, economic development, Main Street, the downtown, Convention and Visitors Bureau, the city, we all do work very well and very closely together to help our community transition from basically, we've been known as an oil and gas. That is what we're known as. Well, that's changing. That not just here, but everywhere. With
the industry as a whole is changing.
Mm-hmm. So it's time that we looked at some of these other great things we have in our community, and instead of keeping them hidden into ourselves, share them and market them, and be proud of where we live. And that's just what I love about the episodes, all the episodes I watched, and just that
good feeling.
Yeah.
It felt good. You wanted to get out. I wanted to go paint front doors in my neighborhood. My front door is bright blue, and I'm like, every front door needs to be a different color.
Let's not tell anybody, and let's just go out and paint doors and see.
You're that lady I never talked to. Why are you painting my door?
Yeah. It could be fun.
Yeah, it's been funny with the doors. We have a lot of tourists, and they ask, well, where's the farmer's market? Where's where are the doors? And I always say, well, go across the bridge and turn right, but good luck finding it, because after they painted one block, everybody painted their doors. Everybody cleaned up their porches. So when you turn, it's hard to find the block where they painted the doors, because really they weren't here to do construction. They were here to create a movement, and they have done that.
And it caught on.
That's so cool. It is really great. It's very inspiring. Not just I sat in a meeting the other day with surrounding towns, Tallahassee, Millbrook, Eclectic, and they too are seeing an influx of people coming, and that the RV parks are full. And one of the towns said, our mayor was always against murals. And the other day he said, we should paint murals too. And I thought, yes, you should. Let me help you do that. So it's good.
Murals, is that always a community project where one person designs it and then the community all comes in to help paint it, or how does that all develop?
To start with, the very first mural, the Main Street director, I had just been here about 5 minutes, and she said, Shellie, will you paint a mural? I said, sure. Then she showed me where it was, and I was like, maybe not, because it's on top of a building when you come over the bridge. But
oh, wow.
So it's a steamboat mural. And then after that one, our high school kids do a unit on murals every year. We have an awesome high school art teacher, and she teaches them how to lay it out and do a rendering. And so then they did one that faces the river. And then our Main Street director got some grant money and did, we had a 90-foot mural done that tells the story of Wetumpka historically, but it's really funky and cool, in our renovated alleyway. And then, of course, Erin did, the 2 other murals. And she had our high school kids. She designed the one that's the Helen Keller quote.
Oh, right.
So she designed that, but then the high school kids were able to do it. And I think that is super important, because having kids invest in their community makes them want to stay. And the best thing we can do is to keep young people in our communities. And because if they leave, what do we have?
That's right.
Young people to be invested and to want to stay and improve where we live. And so anyway, all of that. But I do think murals are great because they give you a flavor.
Yeah, I love that our downtown area in our alleyways has finally started putting murals up in the last few years, and it changes it. It doesn't look like a scary, dingy place. It looks like a fun, vibrant, oh my goodness, what's going on? Let's look at the next one. Let's keep going and looking at them. And I love watching the process when somebody new is putting theirs up. It's so neat.
Yeah, it's a great way to help with those downtown buildings. And again, if you can get the community involved. So speaking of painting and artwork, you're an artist. And so I want to talk about your artwork because this is, I bought one of your paintings and you have an art studio called Big Fish Art, correct?
Big Fish Art Studio.
And
I was an art teacher for 15 years until I took over the Chamber of Commerce. So
okay.
Wow.
Here at the Chamber.
Well, you have a very unique style, and it's very creative and funky, which matches my personality as well. So that's why I love your art. But I think you're just that creative. You have a big vision, and you also, it seems like, know how to get the right people to help with that vision. But tell the listeners your website for your art studio.
Well, it's www.bigfishart4u.com, bigfishartforyou.com. And I'm on social media and Instagram. I'm on Facebook and Instagram too. And I really, I just love to create things, but more than anything, I like to inspire other people to create things. And we do free art camps. I do a free art camp here every summer for kids that need art the most get it the least. So I think it's really important to do those things in your community and make sure everybody has access to art and music and theater. And we do that here really well. And anyway, that's really where my heart is. I love kids. I love me some kids.
It's just a great positive, it's such a great positive story. And I think every community, and we always say this, that no matter where you live, no matter where your community is, you can make a difference in your community. That it's our responsibility, I feel, as citizens of our community, whether it's 10,000 people or, a million people. Right. And sometimes our community is our neighborhood, or our work group. But it's your responsibility to try to make your community a better place. And this whole show with Hometown Takeover, showing the community really rallying and the great stories. And I can't wait to come visit. My husband and we're already planning our trip.
I cannot wait either. I think the thing that I've learned through all of it, becoming a chamber director and with the HGTV thing, is that you really need to know who you are. And the thing that makes you really different and weird is what you just need to rock the fire out of. Like, that is really your superpower, whether it's you as a human being or as your community. That's really who you are. In the middle of the pandemic, I didn't know what to do. I'm a new chamber director. I'm an art teacher. I don't even know what those other people are talking about. So I called the mayor and I said, he loves music. I said, can you get me some pianos? He said, sure. So he gets me all these pianos and we deliver them downtown. And we all just painted pianos in Wetumpka because I know how to do that. That I can do. Paint a piano, Big Fish, hooked on Wetumpka. And then we call the newspaper, we call the news crew, and we roll the pianos out, and everybody came to see the pianos. They all came downtown. They all shopped at the businesses. They all came back out because I didn't know how to do the other part. So you just have to do what you do, play to your strengths, whatever those are, and roll with that and not try and be like everyone else. Wetumpka is very unique. I love that. That's why I'm here.
Well, and I think we're finding out that uniqueness about ourselves. And we just had our first art walk downtown after the pandemic, and it was packed
it was
downtown.
So packed. It was great.
And so the excitement generated from that, but it was just the people being out, but then these artists that we had no idea were even around, all displaying their art. And so I think we're figuring out now who we are after the pandemic, but that's exactly right. The uniqueness, what makes your community special, and rocking it, like you said, and not trying to be like everybody else. And you are your style of chamber director, and I'm my style. And poor Nathan in Brownwood, Texas, in his second week of the job, he's his own style of chamber. He doesn't even know what that is yet. But I think the love of our communities and just wanting to see everybody do well and see our town survive, but not just survive, but thrive. And be able to share our communities with other people is what's so special. So,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions? Anna?
No.
I mean, I know I told you half an hour, and I could talk to you, and I probably will. I'll probably call her like later this week and chat and plan our visit.
If we're being perfectly honest, when I moved to Wetumpka and I'd sit on my porch and I'd look out and it was totally dark and it was kind of scary. And now I sit up on my porch on a Saturday night and there's twinkly lights and families with strollers and people walking their dogs and you can't find a parking place. It makes me cry. And to know that you just have a small part in helping families prosper, like that's going to forever change their kids. Kids that couldn't go to college now can. People are achieving their dreams, starting these businesses they thought were kind of weird. You know, who's going to open a cheese shop in Wetumpka, Alabama? And they're killing it. It is just so gratifying and awesome. It really is. It's very gratifying work.
Oh, it's such a great story. And thank you so much, Shellie.
Yeah.
I can't tell you much. I just have really I've loved getting to know you. Can't wait to come visit. As I said, my husband and I are already planning our trip. You're just have inspired me to continue with what I do as a chamber director, but also with this podcast, so people, no matter where they are, can really get a sense of what can they do for their community, even if it starts with just their neighborhood and
Painting some doors.
Painting some doors. So
Yeah, Shellie, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I have gotten to know you vicariously through Jamie and her excitement of every time she's talked to you. It's been really inspiring, and I am excited to see where your guys' relationship goes and the success of your city and our city. And this has been a great time. Thank you so much.
thank you, Shellie.
For having me. It was
Yep.
good visiting with you. Come to Wetumpka anytime.
I'm going to, and I think we need to do a
Yes.
follow-up podcast in like 6 months or so, just to check in with all the businesses. I want to hear more about the wine and cheese bar. I want to come visit the wine and cheese place, so I will. That's on my list. Thank you, Shellie. We appreciate you.
Yep. Thank
I
you.
appreciate you too. Talk to you
Thanks.
soon.
Alrighty. Bye-bye. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Over a Cup of Coffee. What an exciting episode. And remember, no matter where you live, you can do something to build your community. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.